TIL sudden cardiac arrest is the leading medical cause of death in college athletes, especially among males, African Americans, and basketball players. How deceptive of you to not give the full statement! The results show sudden cardiac arrest is the leading medical cause of mortality among athletes, but there is debate regarding exactly how often it occurs. A recent American Heart Association American College of Cardiology study, assessment of 12 lead ECG as a screening test, suggested that sudden cardiac death is a relatively low event rate phenomenon. You missed that rather key part of this being a rare event in 2015 and now, suddenly, isn't as rare. What changed? Because people who are young and athletic in shape don't die that often, so an oddball issue can easily be the leading cause of death. If 3 people died this year by being set on by a cow instead of 1, you could say death by cow up 300. It sounds scary and like it happens more often than it actually does. How many college athletes die a year? I bet the list is something like 3 heart attacks, 2 guys with liver disease, and 1 guy who tripped playing basketball and broke his neck. I thought 2-a-days were the worst thing I'd ever endured when I was in 7th, 8th, 9th grade football, until I started running line drills in basketball after losses with no AC or fans. Just stagnant air. Guys vomiting and passing out was normal every practice. Jumping boxes would fail and shredding your shins. There was a special hatred for basketball players in my town BC. They weren't football stars. Football coaches did double duty in my town and resented basketball season. I wonder how many basketball players have their aortas dissected because they have Marfan's syndrome and were never diagnosed, either because they were afraid to look into it and be forced into retirement, or because nobody bothered to make the connection. I also wonder if that was the case, if they'd be detailed enough to call it an aortic dissection in the media or continue to list it as cardiac arrest event. Things I think about as a fellow tall person. Why does it seem more common among basketball players? I knew a guy who was really tall, 200 centimeters, and he dropped dead on the basketball court when he was like 19, heart problems. It has to do with height and heart, right? If you look at longevity stats on basketball players, it's not good. They rarely get over 70-75 years old. For anyone out of the loop, LeBron James' son just had a sudden cardiac arrest, and usual suspects like Dr. Elon Musk are blaming vaccines, which they seem to think cause all the sudden deaths now. I don't suppose many heart attack survivors chit-chat here on Reddit, so, in case you were wondering what it felt like, I'll fill you in. Imagine someone standing on your chest, while someone else stabs you with a steak knife every heartbeat. Just like that. 200 times per minute. Height creates additional stress on the heart because it's pumping blood uphill so much further. On the whole, shorter people experience less cardio-related issues than taller people. As height increases, the propensity toward cardio issues grows disproportionately. LMFAO. Like this isn't posted at the perfect time of Bronny James. Well, I feel like we would have heard of it more by now, since apparently it is the leader of deaths in college athletes. Maybe it has something to do with the vaccine, LeBron. You know why? Because young athletes don't generally die, so the pool is low to begin with. However, there is an increase in the overall amount of incidents in young athletes lately. Something you mischievously are trying to cover. No, this thing that's been around forever is caused by a vaccine that was just introduced a few years ago. You see, we only care about it now because people on the internet said the vaccine is making people die of heart attacks. I never played organized basketball in my entire life. My senior year of high school, I asked the coach if I could work out with them in the fall to prepare to ship to basic training in January. Worked like a charm. Is it particularly bad for basketball players because there's something unique about the sport, or is it more a correlation since African American athletes are more likely to get heart attacks? I am not an anti-vaxxer by any means or a COVID denier. I wore the mask and still wish it was acceptable in my area to continue to wear one. But what the fuck is going on here? There's an old term for this. It's called athlete's heart. He had an arrhythmia, where the heart muscle pumps wrong. Think of it as having a physical seizure of the heart. It's true of all young athletes. Not just college. They teach it in coaching certification training. Just did my recertification last night, so it's fresh in my mind. What other medical causes a 18 to 22-year-old who's in better shape than 99.9% of the world going to have that's going to be the leading cause of death? It's probably because basketball players, college and NBA level, are all 7 feet or more and constantly training. The strain on the heart must be a lot. Not according to Republicans who are all medical experts. Nope, say it's the vaccine, even though these incidents predate COVID. Rolling eyes face. No guys, Elon said it's the vaccine on his politically neutral platform, and I trust Elon to be really intelligent, mature and biased. Could be unmonitored EPO uses some in the MMA community have said, or it could just be unfortunate events. Hope he gets better. I have a small number of black brothers from the army who died incredibly young from cardiovascular issues. All in great shape. I can't help but think if it happened more to rich white kids, it'd be better researched, understood, and possibly treated. And before the conspiracy theorists come flying in, this is nothing new. This is why most schools have several AED devices. Perhaps this is the reassurance you needed that this was, in fact, not at all vaccine related. Because that's impossible. A friend of mine died at age 25 after playing basketball. He met all the categories, but he was mostly a track athlete. Maybe the baseline medical knowledge on sugar, acidity, and electrolytes isn't correct. Perhaps ask musicians. So you're telling me intense physical activity constantly could lead to me having sudden cardiac arrest? College kids also chug Red Bulls, Prime and all those super caffeinated drinks like there's no tomorrow. It's steroid, plus the amount of exertion athletes are pushing on themselves is way beyond our human body. I would have thought football players would have a higher rate of cardiac arrest than basketball. Statistically, something has to be the top killer. I still don't like this fact, though. Males, African Americans, and basketball players. That's one hell of a Venn diagram. Anti-vaxxers don't want to hear that stat. It goes against their conspiracy agenda. Echocardiograms, people, get your kid an echo if you put them in sports. I know a guy who got a vaccine once. 10 years later, bam, herpes. This is to do a lot with the fact that many athletes abuse beds. But I thought none of this ever happened before the vaccine. Wouldn't have a and Y thing to do with COVID shots, I suppose. Is it due to hypertrophic obstructive cardiomyopathy? Oh poor Brony. What will he do with his life now?